Welcome back to the channel, Classic Volkswagen Lovers, Junior with classic VW Bucks and Sunny the Super Beetle. In today's video, we're going to be showing you how I install my front windshield seal and trim molding. For the job, I'm going to be using some trimmer line. I'm going to be using some of these high impact pry tools, some of these clamps, maybe some painter's tape, and then I have a sheet of plastic long enough to cover my front windshield, and I'll show you in a few minutes why I use that. You also may need a ruler, any kind of ruler, scissors, or a utility knife, maybe a couple of markers, whatever color you prefer, maybe a pen. That's pretty much it. So you'll need your seal, your trim molding, and obviously your front windshield. So let's get started. So next, I'm going to just pour a little bit of soapy water and use a rag just to kind of like get that surface a little bit wet. Now we're going to take this plastic here and we're going to cover the glass with it, and then we're going to try to get it over to stick to it, and it doesn't have to be perfect, just try to get as many bubbles out as possible. You may be wondering why I am doing this. You'll see here in a minute. So what I'm doing, so you know, I'm using the edge of the utility knife to rest it on top of the glass slightly, not too much pressure, and running the blade right along the side of the edge to sort of like mark a pattern and sort of get a template. And the reason for this is because I want to make sure that center of my seam, it's dead center where I want it. Okay. Next step is probably optional. It's up to you. So some areas where you don't see the line, you can do this. If your line with your racer did trace well, there's no need for you to do this next step that I am doing. Okay, so let me show you here. So basically, I just traced the glass all the way around. You'll see why I'm doing that here in a minute. I guess if you saw my rear window seal installation, you may already have an idea of what's coming up next. Okay, so we got a pattern now. Take this out. And here's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to fold this in half. I knew you saw this coming, and I'm just going to get it right there. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I like to get it as perfect as possible. So we're going to Now put this back here, and that's going to give me a very close center reference. Okay, so there you have it. That should be half of your glass. Okay, next we're going to dry that off a little bit, and then we're going to use some piece of masking tape here. One on top, one on the bottom. And we're going to put this right here, down here, and here. There we go. One more check before we do anything. Put this back there. Looks like that's a good fit for me. So we're going to trace this line here. Move this here. Okay, so I trace a line here in the middle, and we're going to use the same sheet of plastic, and you can see that if you look on this side here, it's right there on the edge. And there you have your perfect center in your glass. That's the way I do it. Now, you don't have to do this if you want to eyeball it, that's fine. Now, just for the video purpose only, I'm going to mark this in red so you can see it better. And okay, so that's your perfect center. That's the perfect center. Next step is pretty simple. Just make sure you have your glass facing in the right direction. So if you look at your glass, it's sort of warped a little bit, although it's called a flat front windshield. It's not 100% flat, so you want to make sure that this side that is warped is facing out of the car. We gotta find our windshield seal, and now we're going to make sure that we find that seam right there in the middle. Always remember that the right place to install it is going to be the deeper crease. So you got 1, 2. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is that this deeper crease here, that's where you want to start. So if you look here, and I'm going to start installing this, I would need to start right here. So what you want to do is flip the glass around in a manner that you can just apply pressure with your hands and get it to stay where it needs to be. So we're going to flip this glass around like so. So we know this is the out. Face out. Our center is right there. And now we got the seal right here. So I'm going to begin by aligning this here, glass in. Now again, this is how I do it. You can do it in whichever way you think works for you. You can use tape to hold it in place while you continue to go around the perimeter of your glass. Be careful not to apply pressure down. Remember, this is warp, like so, so you might break it, so be careful. Okay, so we got the seal already installed. Once you install the seal, you can remove your masking tape or your painter's tape. I like to keep it in my glass just in case I need it. Okay, so our next step is to grab our trim molding and lay it on top of your groove to get your shape as accurate as possible. Then after you do that, you're going to take your trimmer line and insert it inside the groove. In the previous video, I did not use any soapy water and it worked. In this video, I'm going to use some soapy water, and I'm just going to use a swab, a cotton swab, and just go above the seam. I'm not going to even pour any of that fluid inside, and see how that goes, okay? So make sure that your rubber seal, it's well seated. So we got that. That's fine. Now next we're going to do the fitment. So you're going to get your trim molding out. You got this piece that goes right on this side here, and then we got this piece that goes right here. And with this part, I would recommend that you be very patient and take your time. Don't rush it. Notice how I am slightly bending it to get it to lay on top of the groove. And you want to do a little bit at a time. And here is where these guys come in handy. So I'm going to start by getting this line here in the corner again. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can get it very close, it's going to save you a lot of time. Okay, so let me show you what I meant by trying to get it as close as possible. So basically, all I did was lay the trim on top. That's your seam right there. So you try to get it as close to the center as possible. You probably will have to trim these pieces because they usually come a little bit longer than they need to be. Notice how this is my center line, and this trim piece is past that center just by a hair, and then here it's past it by about a quarter of an inch to 3/8. So just, you know, go around and do that, and then you do the same for the other side. So whatever you do on this side, you repeat on this side, and if you need to trim these pieces, then you determine that. Off camera, I also shape this other side as close as I could to the center of the groove where it needs to be installed. If you look right there, there is a black line that I made with a Sharpie, and there is another one over here on the other side that I am also going to be using as a reference to cut one here and one right here. So I'm going to go ahead, trim that piece off, and then we'll come back and install that trim. But before we install the trim, remember I'm going to be using a trimmer's weed whacker line, some people call it. I'll go ahead and trim this piece off and come back with it. Okay, so I have all of my trim molding now pre-cut. I'm going to use now a cotton swab with soapy water. I'm going to just apply a small bit of it. I'm going to go ahead and start by pushing this in. So what I'm doing right now as I do this is doing a comparison as to how was it to get the trimmer line before without using the soapy water. And honestly, it looks like it works. I'm not gonna lie. And then the good thing about soapy water is that it evaporates, and when you are doing this type of work, you want to make sure that if you're using any type of lubricant to insert the glass or to insert your trim molding, it does evaporate, because if it remains wet, you're going to risk a chance that whatever you're installing is going to want to come back out. It's going to try to slip out. It does work much better this way though. Okay, so I'm going to begin by installing this piece here first. The idea is to apply now a little bit of soapy water, and then we're going to use the cotton swab here. We're going to apply just a small amount like this, and then we're going to start inserting this in here. And at the same time, we're going to be pressing in. And then the other thing that we're going to be doing is, as we press in, we're going to take this trimmer's line, and we're going to be pulling little by little and pressing in, okay? Again, you want to try to keep this as close to where it needs to be as possible. I'm going to try to use this little plastic clamps to hold my piece in place as I go. I'm going to put a little bit of soapy water right there. And I'm going to bring this here. So that already went in. I'll bring this here so you can see this. You can see how it already sunk in. We pre-molded these as close as we could. And I already see that this is going in fine. The hardest part is when you get to the corners over here. So the idea is to keep on doing that little by little, and then over here, where you can use, if you want, clamps to hold that right there, just like so, and keep on going. And this one here, just to give you an idea, I'm using the soapy water. Again, you want to pull this out and press at the same time. This is the toughest part right here. Okay, so that's pretty much half install. Now you do the same thing for the other half of the windshield. Okay, let's install. Make sure that that rubber seal, it's still where it needs to be. Okay, so I have turned the front windshield with the complete part towards my left. I'm going to get started with the right side. One thing that I did find to be easier is that after you install this, you can actually take this clip here, slip it into the groove, and then push it towards its slice until it slides over your trim molding. Then you can get it to the very far edge right there, and then later you can just tap it with one of these to couple with this here. Like I stated earlier in my previous video, I just wanted to challenge the use of the trimmer line without soapy water, and it worked. But honestly, with the soapy water, this chrome molding slits in easier. You can always go back like that. Okay, so now the next step is to slide the little clip here to go over this here, and that should be it. Let's use one of these here. There you go. Just make sure that they are dead center. These measure 1.5 inches, so half of that is 3/4. And so we are right dead on. And then here, we'll do the same thing on the other side. So that was dead on. Let's make sure the other side is the same thing. So I need to slide this one just a hair that way. So we got 1, 2, 3/4 right here, and the same over here. Okay, so we can grab these tapes off. Okay folks, so that's it for this tutorial. I hope that you enjoy my little tricks. If this is the first time that you're watching my channel, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps my channel to grow more. Until then, this is Junior with the classic VW Bucks and Sonic the Super Beetle. Junior out.